Luxury SUVs. These are the cars many people aspire to. Perfect for families who want to rise above the hoi polloi.
But which is best, the new Lexus RX, the recently revised Mercedes GLE, formerly known as the ML class, or the good old BMW X5? Do you know what, it looks like some posh parents have gone and triple parked outside their kids' school.
To help you decide, I'm going to compare their design,
This car's look won't be everyone's cup of green tea.
critique their cabins,
It's just so Yawnsville in it compared to the other two.
test what they like to drive,
This GLE feels the most tank-like.
and see just how practical they are.
Going eco requires it to be more economical with your luggage as well.
But first, let's look at the prices. The Lexus starts from £40,000 for the 2-litre turbo petrol, while the hybrid is from £47,000. However, at carwow.co.uk you can save on average around £2,400 on an RX. The Mercedes starts from £49,000, and if you want the hybrid, that's £65,000. Thankfully though, through Carwow you can save an average of £9,500 on a GLE. And finally, the BMW, well, that starts from £44,500 for a 2-wheel drive 2-litre diesel, while the hybrid is £52,000. If in-car tech is your thing, you should check out the X5. Its iDrive is the best infotainment system here by far. It's dead easy to use, and the traffic dodging Navi will see you right. The Mercedes system looks smart, but it's not so clever when you come to use it. It's all a bit of a faff to use.
At first you think the system in the Lexus is going to be the best. It's got the biggest screen, and bigger is always better, right? Well, wrong actually in this case, because the menus, well, it's all very confusing to use. And yeah, okay, so you've got stuff like Google Street View, but the way you have to control stuff using this weird mouse force feedback thing, it's just, oh god, it's really hard to operate.
Other than that though, the Lexus's cabin is the best to sit in. It's such an interesting design and feels way more modern, with stuff like wireless mobile phone charging available and laser-etched wooden inlays from Yamaha's piano division. And it should never break, as Lexus has a much better reliability record than the Germans. Still, the Mercedes actually feels pretty solid to the touch, and you can brighten it up with the 2-tone leather of our test car, which is a non-cost option. However, while the GLE is a new name, the car itself is actually a rebodied M-Class. And do you know what? It kind of shows, because that dash layout, apart from that new infotainment system, well, it's rather similar to before.
But it's the X5 which feels the most dated on the inside. It's just so Yawnsville in here compared to the other two. There are a few things I do like though, such as the steering wheel. That's quite nice, and this widescreen, it's got some pretty graphics, and yeah, that's about it really.
You can tell this car is reaching the end of its life cycle. Still, at least all the materials feel high quality, even if they do look a little bit drab.
The X5 has actually aged a lot better here on the outside. I mean, it's still very imposing. It's got that tough road presence that you'd expect from a BMW SUV, helped partly by the fact that it's got some of the widest rear tyres on any road car. Just be warned, these cost up to 500 quid each to replace.
In making the transformation from being the M-Class to the GLE, this car's had some new bumpers and lights front and back. But really none of this matters, because what attracts people most about this car is the badge.
Now this badge, yeah, it doesn't have the same appeal nor heritage as the other two, so Lexus needs to do something else to attract people's attention, and it does that with its daring designs. Okay, so I'll admit that this car's look won't be everyone's cup of green tea, but people who like it really like it, and well, I'm one of them.
Compared with the other cars here, this one looks like some concept that's been stolen from a motor show stand, and it's particularly unusual in this optional paint scheme. Now you probably guessed that this Lexus is a hybrid. This one uses a 3-litre V6 petrol engine and 2 electric motors, one of which is in the back to drive the rear wheels. But this BMW is also a hybrid, and you can actually plug this one into the mains to charge the battery to give you better range and supposedly superior fuel economy. Also, rather than a big V6 engine, it has a 2-litre 4-cylinder from the Mini. This Mercedes though, it has a good old-fashioned 3-litre turbo diesel. Thing is, the electric motors in hybrids give them instant thrust, but we want to find out if this is enough to keep them ahead of the traffic.
So we're going to conduct a real-life drag race, something that happens every day. So the cars are pulled up to the lights, the engine stop-start systems have cut the engines, and then it turns green. Who gets ahead within 30 metres? So let's find out. 3, 2, 1, go! Well, there we go. It was the BMW, followed by the Lexus, and last was the Mercedes.
There is a problem with hybrids though, and that's boot space. Due to the batteries in the back, the capacity is actually 150 litres less than in the diesel version, and you can't get it with that model's 7-seater option either. You can't get a third row of seats with any model of the GLE, though as this is the diesel, its boot is running at full capacity and is absolutely massive. We were able to fit all our luggage props in it. However, there is little to split this and the non-hybrid X5's boot in terms of capacity. Had this been the hybrid GLE, it would have been just as small as the BMW hybrid's boot.
Now, there seems to be a bit of a theme here, that going eco requires you to be more economical with your luggage as well. But unlike the Mercedes and the BMW, the non-hybrid version of this RX doesn't actually get any more boot space than this hybrid version.
The boot capacity is about the same as the X540 ES, though the Lexus's sloping roofline means you can pack one less suitcase in the car. If it's outright load lugging capacity you want, it is the least practical car here, though the RX will still have enough space for most people. We can't fault its cubby spaces though, they are really impressive. The folder style door bins are a particular highlight, but once again the overall cubby spaces trail that of the BMW and the Mercedes. And it's the same when fitting a child seat. The concealed Isofix anchor points make it trickier than necessary when fitting the base, and it's a bit of a shame as the rest of the process is dead simple.
If I had to travel some distance in the back of these cars, I'd choose to do it in the Lexus, and that's because its seats are the most comfortable. Its leather seems the softest. I like the way you can recline the seats a fair way, and I think, yeah, it's the comfiest in the back. Well, if there's only 2 of you, that is.
However, it's the worst with 3 in the back as the middle seat is just too high. The Mercedes doesn't feel quite as nice to sit in the back when there's just 2 of you, but it's better at carrying 3 at once, though the hard middle seat still means it's not ideal. Still, the GLE has the best in-car storage out of the 3, and it's the easiest to fit a child seat in, as the Isofix anchor points have the easiest access. However, in the BMW, they are concealed like in the Lexus, as the rear seats feel the least luxurious here, but they are spacious, and when you combine that with the nearly flat floor and wide soft middle seat, this is the best car for carrying 3 in the back at once if that's what you're after. However, most people will be more interested in how these cars feel to drive, so let's find out.
Now, this GLE feels the most tank-like out of these 3 SUVs, and I actually mean that as a compliment because it feels like a big, sturdy, strong vehicle, and that's sometimes what people want from an SUV. But that doesn't mean that it's completely, well, cumbersome in the corners. It actually handles pretty well. It's better than the X5 in hybrid guise, but it's not as good as the normal diesel X5. Now, just like the other SUVs, you can get this car with a hybrid, but this is the 3-litre diesel, and it kind of brings it home why diesels are so popular in SUVs. So you put your foot down and it just, well, the mid-range punch just makes this car accelerate at quite an alarming rate. But Mercedes says that if you're careful, you should be able to do decent economy in it. And actually I am. I'm doing 38 miles per gallon. And oh, this is a nice relaxing car to travel in. I think the suspension, it's a little bit firmer than in the Lexus. This one's riding on air suspension actually, and it's really good. It's better than the normal spring setup. But the seats, I think the only problem for me are the seats. They're just not as yielding as in the Lexus. It's a quiet car though. It is quiet. It's quieter than the BMW. But yeah, not quite as quiet as the Lexus, especially when that car's driving on electric power alone.
So, how does the BMW compare?
The BMW X5 does stand out in this group as being the most sporty to drive of these 3 SUVs. It's definitely got the best handling, but it's also comfy as well. Now, if you do want the sportiest SUV, it's none of these anyway, it's the Porsche Cayenne. But there is something about this BMW that I should point out. So this hybrid weighs 250 kilograms more than the normal X5, and that does make it feel more cumbersome. So I just don't recommend it, especially as I'm getting nowhere near to BMW's claimed 85 or so miles per gallon. I'm actually just getting 35 miles per gallon. If you're going to get an X5, get the 3-litre diesel engine. It really suits the car. It's a great engine, very powerful, very fast, maybe a little bit noisy, and that brings us on to another problem with this car actually. You get lots of tyre roar, lots of wind whistle, and that can be a bit annoying when you're driving on the motorway at high speed, and that's the thing that really does just affect this car ever so slightly and how comfy it is to live with.
Now let's find out what the Lexus is like.
Now, a lot of people might be put off this Lexus immediately because you can't get it with a diesel engine. So, oh my God, horror of horrors. There's 2 petrols, one's a 2-litre turbo petrol, which you shouldn't bother with. But then there's this, the 450h, the hybrid. So you've got a V6 petrol engine, 3 litres, 2 electric motors. One is at the front, one's at the back, and it drives the rear wheels. And actually, Lexus says that you should be able to get 51 miles per gallon. I'm getting 44, which is actually really good. Also, on the whole, this car is really, really comfy to travel in. It's dead quiet, the seats are lovely. Yeah, it's not as agile as the BMW, but it still handles well enough. You're not going to be disappointed. Anyway, what are you planning to do in a big SUV like this? You're going to have your family on board. You can't be chucking it around some twisty roads. It's actually more likely that you're going to be shunting along in traffic, and then this car is completely silent because it can run on electric only mode. The only thing that spoils it slightly is when you put your foot down. The CVT gearbox does hold the engine revs at a certain rate, and so you get this droning sound, but it's not the worst sound in the world because it's a V6 petrol. They sound nice. Overall, I'm pretty impressed with how this car drives. I quite like it. I think I might be getting a bit old.
Seeing as this is a review of SUVs, there seems to be something missing from this test.
Now, if you're wondering which of these 3 cars will be the best off-road, it's this, the Mercedes GLE. With the air suspension, you can raise the ride height, plus you can get its 9-speed automatic gearbox with an optional low ratio mode. But I'm not going to do some extensive testing because there's no point. Most buyers of these cars will never ever go off-road. And truth be told, neither will I. This is all just camera trickery.
So then, where does that all leave us?
So the BMW X5, this is a really good car, but it is best sampled in 3-litre diesel, guys. But even then, it's really starting to show its age. Now, the changes Mercedes have made to this GLE do help make it feel more competitive, but once again, it's slightly long in the tooth, this car. Whereas this Lexus RX, it feels totally modern. I mean, it's super luxurious inside. It's really comfy to travel in. You can get pretty surprising economy from its hybrid powertrain. And of course, being a Lexus, it should never break down. And that's why it wins this test. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, share it, and subscribe to our channel. And if you click over there, you can watch the detailed in-depth video reviews of all the cars in this test. Now, did you know that since 1995, BMW has reduced the CO2 emissions of its range by 30%?